Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia and welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup 2020. So, we have some news to cover. Now, if you don't know what the coronavirus is, where have you been for the past couple of months or so? Because it's had a massive impact on stuff happening in the world, and it has impacted the Overwatch League in quite a significant way. So, to recap, we should have had some Chinese homestands going on between week 2 and week 7 of this year's league, but they have all been called off because of the coronavirus outbreak in China. So this includes homestands at Shanghai, Guangzhou and Hangzhou. And obviously these games have to take place at some point. Well, the league has given us an update on what they are planning for these games and what they are planning in terms of where and when these games will take place, because we still don't know what's going on with the coronavirus, right? We don't know how long it's going to be about. We don't know how catastrophic it's going to become. It's pretty bad already, but we don't know when or if the homestands in China will be able to go ahead this year or this season. So they had to make some sort of contingency plan ahead of that. So the homestands for Shanghai, Guangzhou and Hangzhou that should have taken place in February and March have been moved to Seoul. They will take place in Seoul, South Korea over multiple days in weeks 6 and week 7. So this puts it slap bang when the Florida Mayhem homestand is, so that's week 6, and in week 7 we are due to be in Atlanta. Week 6 is actually a really chunky week, even though we had one of the homestands already cancelled. The Florida Mayhem homestand was actually a homestand where we'd see 6 matches. London Spitfire, New York Excelsior, Philadelphia Fusion. It was actually going to be a pretty interesting homestand. And then that week we're also going to get some of these Chinese homestand games that we've missed already. And in week 7 we'll get some of those games as well. Now those homestands we were actually going to see some very interesting games at, because this is where we'd see like the Titans take on the Dragons, and the Dragons, where a lot of people are picking to be quite a good team this season. Dragons versus the Gladiators, Dragons versus the Shock, Charge versus the Gladiators. It's some really, really interesting games. Spark versus the Dynasty. And these games will be very big tellers in terms of where these teams are at. We are not going to see most of the Chinese teams until at least week 5, which is the Seoul Dynasty homestand, I believe. And even then we won't get to see people like the Dragons or Chengdu. So this decision makes week 6 and week 7 of this season absolutely monstrous. Massive 2 weeks. Because that will be that'll be the judgment point. Most of the teams will have had a chance to settle into the season by then. Hangzhou would have played their first games, Guangzhou would have played their first games, Seoul would have played their first games. We will see and know what most of the league and most of the teams look like. Only a few teams will have some more questions about, like Chengdu and definitely Shanghai, because we won't have seen them by then. But there'll be a lot of questions that will be answered during that week in terms of consistency, and by then we will know kind of how the league is shaping up. We will know who are the teams to beat in some respects. We'll know if the Titans, the Shock, in some respects, are teams to beat. Or whether there is some dark horses coming up the ladder from lower down, like the Florida Mayhem and people like that. Whether they can make any headway into those top places. And then it'll be up to the likes of Hangzhou and Guangzhou, Chengdu to react to that, because they won't have had the stage time that the rest of the teams will have had, because their homestands would have been called off and they'll be bulk playing in week 6 and 7. It's going to be a really, really busy period at that point for players as well, because when you look at it, they're going to be playing a lot of matches in a short period of time. Like, they're going to be in Seoul week 5, and then there's going to be an absolute megaton of matches to play out over those 3 weeks, and it will change the look of how the standings are. It will completely change the look of the standings, because it will just iron out a load of creases, because we will get to week 5 and the standings will look very, very odd, because we won't have seen we will have seen the Shock play 1 game. We'll have seen the Titans play 2 games? And the rest of the teams like London, New York, Florida, Paris, Philadelphia, Houston, they're looking at 4, 5, 6 games into their season. So it's going to be a really weird look to the league for the first few weeks. But once we get to that week 6 and 7, after we get past that point, everyone is going to be on a fairly level playing field apart from Shanghai. They'll be ever so slightly behind. But they'll very soon catch up, because then it will literally be full steam ahead. Because we are not scheduled to go back to China for any Chinese homestands until well past week 20. So you're talking well into like July before we'll be back in China for like Guangzhou and Hangzhou again. So I really do feel for the Chinese fans actually, because this is such a killer. Because I know the Chinese fans were really, really looking forward to this. I believe the homestands were selling really, really well over there. And there's a massive, massive following behind these teams. So it is really unfortunate what's happened, but it's interesting to see that the league have acted, and the league are saying, right, we're going to get these matches done before basically week 10. So week 6 and 7, what a week that is going to be. It's going to be one hell of a roundup, that's for sure. I'm not quite sure how the roundup is going to look, because it's going to be so long and there's going to be so much to talk about. So that's going to be really, really interesting when it comes to that point, and we're actually not that far away from that point when you look at it. The Florida Mayhem homestand is on March the 14th. Well, that's even less than a month away now. So we are really close to getting some really interesting stuff going on. And one caveat to say about this announcement is also the fact that they are not adverse to adding some fixtures to other homestands. For example, we are travelling to Seoul in week 5, and that is currently going completely ahead as normal. And they also said that they might be adding fixtures to that Seoul Dynasty homestand to basically alleviate the pressure on weeks 6 and 7, because when you look at it, that's going to be a lot of fixtures they've got to cram into just weeks 6 and 7. So if they can alleviate some of that by just packing a few into that Seoul Dynasty homestand, then they can alleviate some of the pressure that they've got later down the line. And if you are buying tickets to that Seoul Dynasty homestand, or you have already got tickets to that Seoul Dynasty homestand, you might be a very lucky person, because you might get more games than you had anticipated if they do an all-day ticket. I know that London have done an all-weekend and all-day ticket and stuff like that, so if you've got that, you could be in for more Overwatch than you were anticipating, but I think that's good all round. I think we love to see pros play, and the more we get to see them play in the flesh at live homestands, I think the better. So if you're attending that Seoul homestand, you could be in for a very cool surprise. But that is the roundup of this announcement from the Overwatch League. It's something that caught me off guard, let's say, because I wasn't expecting him to roll on it quite this quickly. There's obviously a want for Blizzard to just get on with it and get these cancelled games done. And I can completely understand that, because it can have a negative effect on the teams that are affected by it, right? Some people have already talked about how the events in China are going to affect the Chinese teams, especially Chinese teams with heavy Chinese contingents like Chengdu Hunters. And I can understand that. If you're not having a homestand, or your homestand's been cancelled, it's going to be a real, not emotional perhaps, but a real downer for the likes of Shanghai, Hangzhou and Guangzhou when they've had to move their homestands out of China. Like, the whole point of this season was to hold homestands in your home cities, and for reasons out of their control and out of the league's control, it's not going to happen, and that's really gutting for them, because I think they're missing out on some really great action, and hopefully we can, or us as a world, and scientists and all people like that, we can deal with the coronavirus, have it out of the way by the summer, and come July, we can have those Chinese homestands. Because I really think those Chinese homestands were going to be good. I think the atmosphere was going to be really, really awesome at those homestands. I've seen some Chinese fans with the Overwatch League teams before, and from the footage I've seen, it looks really, really cool. And it looks like they'll put on a really, really good show when they get their chance to. So let's hope, let's pray that we can get this sorted, and the world can get this sorted, and everyone can go back to normal, because it's not just affecting Overwatch. There's been soccer matches, there's been all sorts cancelled because of this outbreak, and obviously we rotate back to the bigger issue at hand here, and it's people's lives, let's be honest, that are at stake here. And let's hope that the world can come together and remove coronavirus from the world, and everyone can live safe and happy as per usual. But I'm going to leave it here for this one. So, thank you guys so much for watching today. If you'd like to give a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then.